Hey,
Gary,
David.
I love this. I mean, I think we've all always loved Fridays, but now more than ever, I get to see you. I feel like we're so close, even though we're, I don't know, 3,000 miles apart. Right before I come on, because I'm hanging out with you and several thousand people, I always brush my teeth right before I come on.
Me too.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yep. I don't want my breath to drive anyone away.
Exactly. But what you just heard before we came on was CD4 of Stepping Out with the Grateful Dead, which was from Europe 72. It was a bunch of the England shows that the Dead played. We had a few people asking about it, so I just want to get that out of the way. CD4, Stepping Out. It's from the bulk of what you heard, the Dark Star and Caution, all that stuff, was from the second night of the tour in Wembley, April 8th. And it's very relevant to what we're going to be talking about tonight, so we'll get to that in a minute.
Fantastic. I've got the complete Europe 72 right here.
Likewise.
You've got yours.
Yep.
So glad to own that, I'll tell you. One of the best. I just want to say, for starters, you may remember last week, Branford Marsalis gave me a little grief for drinking tea when he had some fine bourbon in hand. So I decided, Branford, you drove me to this, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Branford.
Anyway, as David said, we have some great stuff from one of the greatest Grateful Dead tours ever. I think there's fairly widespread agreement about that. And a really unusual piece in the Grateful Dead history. In the visual history, I don't think there's anything to match it. It may be the smallest show they ever played in terms of number of people in the room, because it wasn't a show. It was a TV taping.
It was, and with that came several very beneficial things to what we're going to see. The lighting was incredible. The camera quality was incredible. The Dead brought their multi-track recording system in with them. Of course they did. So it's for the audio-visual document of Europe 72, it really can't get much better. There are no fans, but that's what we're here for. The thousands of you watching, we can be the audience that wasn't there in the TV studio that night. And we get to see the Dead play some really classic Europe 72 music and get to see close-up shots of playing in the band a couple times, and the other one and Truckin' and Bertha. It's a special document, as Gary says. It's really neat.
It's got a retake. And before we bring in our very special guest about whom we're so excited, we want to let you know that once again, we are raising money for a great cause, really the cornerstone cause for giving in the Grateful Dead community for going on 40 years now. We're talking about the Rex Foundation. This is where it all started as far as having a clearinghouse for the Grateful Dead to distribute the generous donations of fans who bought tickets for their benefit shows to a wide variety of causes. And this came about after the Grateful Dead had been asked to do so many benefits, and they almost never turned anybody down, that they said, well, let's come up with a specific organization that we can use to find worthy causes in the arts, in environmental causes, in education, in social justice causes. And it's been going on. It has outlived the Grateful Dead for nearly a quarter century. It continues. The surviving members of the Grateful Dead and many other friends from the musical community continue to do benefit shows for Rex. Rex continues to accept donations from fans. And tonight, I'm delighted that they are our beneficiary, because I've been working with Rex and admiring its work since it started in the early 80s.
Yep, and the money Rex raises, as Gary says, it really does make a difference. It goes to small organizations. They're very meaningful grants that are given to these organizations that, they apply for them. And Rex is run by extremely good people, and the people who care. The Grateful Dead are still involved. So your any donation, as Gary has said, $1, $5, whatever you can donate is a huge help, and it'll go to the arts communities. It'll go to environmental education. It'll go to good things we care about. And I think that goes for pretty much all deadheads, all humans, I hope. So it really, all those donations make a huge difference. And again, it's run by good people who care.
And there's a blue button on your screen. If you are on a browser, it's over there to that side of the screen there. You're right as you face your screen. I don't even know what direction I'm pointing in because everything's reversed on the screen. If you're on some other device, it may be below the screen, but there's a blue button. It says donate. I will count on your intelligence to find it. And if you are logged on to your YouTube account, you need to be, you can click on it. You may have already put your credit card information in there, so it's a very easy process. And also below that donate button is a place for comments, for running commentary during our little pregame show and also during the showing of this great Beat Club show. But without further ado, we should bring in our guest, one of the great members of our community, one of the best storytellers I've ever met. So a perfect person to chew the fat with on this show. David, why don't you do the honors?
We're very pleased. And this is somebody I've been working with the dead a little over 20 years, Gary, closer to 30 or 40 years. And he's been around and we've gotten to know him very well. We have, and we're very honored to have Sam Cutler come on in and join us on Shakedown stream. Sam, how are you?
Hey, look at you young people. It's nice to speak to people. Nice to speak to people that still have their own teeth and don't have grey hair. No, just kidding. Hello to all the deadheads out there. It's lovely to be in touch. I live in Australia now for nearly 25 years. There are deadheads here, but they're few and far between. They're like cactus in the desert, as it were. But yeah, it's lovely to be with you and to talk to people who are of similar mindset, if you like. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. And by the way, let me just say, as far as the Rex Foundation is concerned, I used to live with Rex Jackson. We shared a house together. He was a madman, just like me. We had a lot of fun. He was a wonderful, wonderful person. And nobody in the Grateful Dead, can forget him as a person, which is, of course, why the Rex Foundation is still going. Every single member of the band loved Rex, and we all did. So good on you for doing that for Rex. And I encourage people to support the Rex Foundation, of course. I'd just like to say one thing. I don't want everyone to get sad about this, but I just received news that my foster brother died in England from the coronavirus. And I know that in America, you're all suffering big time from this. And indeed, this show is in a sense, a response to the pandemic, and the fact that we've all got to be isolated. So we're coming together here is a beautiful way of supporting one another. And I feel for all my American friends. I've lost friends in America to it. I know that you're suffering there, and my heart goes out to everyone, and one love.
Thank you, Sam. I can't agree more. And I'm actually in a little bit of loyalty to my hometown today. I'm wearing the New York cap and my Capitol Theater shirt because my city has been tremendously impacted by this. All my friends who work at the Capitol Theater and the Brooklyn Bowl and venues all over the country are struggling to financially. And that's part of why we're here. We have been raising money specifically for COVID-19 related causes and also causes that help musicians, professionals in the music industry. And of course, the Rex Foundation covers an enormous swath of good causes. So it's an honor to do this and to help out in any way we can.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Fuck. Well, I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? It's very, very hard to get the head round it, and it was only now that, because mainly I've got virtually no family left. I'm so bloody old, that this is the first member of my family, you know what I mean? Albeit a foster brother who, has passed on, and that brings it home to you that, all these numbers that are constantly being thrown about represent families. They represent people who are suffering. So anyway, let's try and go on with a smile and be brave. And as they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And when the going gets weird, the weird get weirder. So
right. Well, you've come to the right place then, my friend. Sam, you're definitely going to win our most distant guest award. I don't think anyone's going to challenge that. In fact, where you are,
space station. Let us not forget.
That's right. Where you are, we are well into tomorrow.
We're all space cadets. What the fuck?
Right. And it's tomorrow where you are, and for you, it's yesterday where we are. And I think being completely disoriented is exactly the right place to be when you're talking about this music from nearly 4 decades ago, 1972. So we're going to travel back in time and talk about infinitely more enjoyable things than the challenges that are facing us right now.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Sam, no, I think most of our viewers are quite familiar with your history with the band, but you joined the Dead in early 1970, right?
Well, I got to know them basically because of Altamont. So I was hanging out with them before Altamont, which wasn't the Rolling Stones free concert in California. It was actually the Grateful Dead's free concert in California. They managed to somehow slip away from that. Sneaky lot, the Grateful Dead, bless them, love them. Yep. So they never, quite got the approbation that the Rolling Stones got for all that. But anyway, hanging out at the Grateful Dead's office and all that, and trying to get, make some sense out of all the chaos that preceded Altamont, drew me into their circle. And I loved the madness, which was my first kind of connection with them. And then, of course, excuse me, I got involved with the music and loved the music. And I've always loved Miles Davis calling the Grateful Dead a jazz band that played rock and roll, which is about the closest, description of the Grateful Dead, I think, that what I've ever really come across. And after Altamont, it happened that during Altamont, Lenny Hart, who was the Reverend Lenny Hart, a Christian gentleman, managed to steal $300,000 from the Grateful Dead and run away with some little girl from the bank to San Diego. They found him in a motel on the beach in San Diego. He didn't have much imagination, Lenny. Anyway, they asked me, basically, I was staying at Jerry's house immediately after Altamont, and Jerry and I had long conversations, about how the Rolling Stones organised their business affairs. And Jerry was absolutely shocked when I told him, well, the Rolling Stones business affairs were run by three people: a girl in the office, a girl that ran the fan club, right, and a guy that was part-time who did the accounts. I think the Grateful Dead had about 50 or 60 people, hangers-on and workers for them at the time. Jerry was like speechless. He just couldn't believe that it was possible. So anyway, to cut a long story short, they hired me basically because, they wanted to continue being the Grateful Dead, which meant, somehow or other, they had to get over the $300,000 that Lenny stole and about another couple of $100,000 that they owed in the just general, stream of things. So the first thing I asked for was the accounts, as you do. So I was handed 2 plastic shopping bags full of receipts that were the accounts for the previous 4 years. So it was an interesting beginning to a wonderful relationship. I loved those guys then. I love them now. And good old Jerry, bless him. I'll never forget that man, that's for sure. And I listen to his music every day. And I'm sure that all the people here that are listening to you guys and me rabbiting on listen to him too. He was a wonderful person.
And that sort of sets the stage.
Here ends the first lesson. Should I do it like when I finish talking? Should I go like that, Gary? So you know that
Oh no, we're good at leaping into the breach. So here's a breach.
Yeah, you know me. You just have to shut me up, man. I keep going.
That's good. You love it.
Yeah, we love a good quick segue. So to bring us to Europe '72, I mean, you helped get the band's affairs in order. You got them touring a lot in the Northeast, which was a big stronghold, and their financial fortunes were making a comeback, and
definitely.
and they had actually sold some records with Live Dead and Working Man's Dead and American Beauty. Yeah. So going to Europe had always been an idea. They had entertained. They had made a couple of short trips over there. But a full-fledged tour was a very ambitious undertaking in 1972 for them, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, definitely. And I mean, it was because this all resulted from long talks I used to have with Jerry. Because my trip with Jerry was always, look, man, just tell me what you fucking want. You tell me what you want and be clear about it, and I'll make it happen. As long as I've got your support, yours meaning Jerry's and the band. If you give me, clear ideas in the Grateful Dead were sometimes a bit hard to come by. people were very, oh, don't know about that. Oh, don't know about that. Wonder what Jerry would think. Or Jerry would go, I wonder what Jerry thinks. You know what I mean? Jerry was not, he was a reluctant leader, Jerry. Jerry much preferred that people did what they did, and then he'd kind of express an opinion afterwards. You know what I mean? Like he hated it or he loved it, or often he'd take a kind of no position.
Right.
You know?
Jerry's great phrase for the Grateful Dead was pathologically non-confrontational.
Indeed. Yeah, you could never, you know, it's like getting blood out of a stone sometimes, trying to get Jerry to, you know, express an opinion. But that, of course, is a very clever kind of political stance to take in the midst of a kind of anarchic group of individuals like the Grateful Dead, you know, who see, Jerry had a pathological dislike of the idea of being the leader. He didn't want to lead nothing, except, we should be very clear about this, when he was on stage, when he was a kind of Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, you know, kind of combination, you know, that segued into kind of acid consciousness, if you like. But you know what I mean? He was like ruthlessly efficient in directing things. So anyway, Europe came about because Jerry loved the idea of playing to people who didn't really know English. So they'd have to really, you know, the music now becomes everything, doesn't it? You know what I mean? The words, not that the words of the songs were necessarily always that central to what the Grateful Dead's attraction was, you know, because, you know, people learn the lyrics rather, after they've known the songs quite a long time. And once they've managed to work out what the lyrics were. But, you know, the music is essential. Jerry always had this feeling that if he played for German people, Danish people, whatever, French people, the attention would be on the music, you know. And so it represented a great challenge for the Grateful Dead to go to Europe. And I think, you know, in retrospect and at the time, they absolutely loved it. The Grateful Dead, like all great bands, respond to challenges. They want musical challenges, you know, and going to the Beat Club specifically, that was a challenge. There was no one there, man. So the Grateful Dead, instead of kind of getting freaked out about it, and they're so clever, they were so clever, they just played for one another, which anyway they do anyway, you know what I mean? But when you're playing for one another and there's, you know, 5,000 people out there, or 50,000 people, or even 150,000 or 600,000, it's a different trip to when you're playing for one another. And all there is these German studio technicians. So to set the scene, we arrive in this place, you know, who knows? Nobody's ever fucking been there before. It's just like a TV studio. And they're like, yeah, you will be on stage in 4.5 minutes, and everything is ready. Yeah, Mr. Garcia, you want to comb your hair or whatever, you know. All very kind of, yeah, we go. And, you know, the countdown and all that shit. And yeah, and Jerry was pissed off. I mean, if you look at the video, the first thing you'll notice is that Jerry looks very grumpy, because he was very grumpy, but he was grumpy for a very Garcia reason. He wasn't playing enough. See, we had to drag 50-odd people around fucking Europe. So, you know, you can't play every night and do that, you know, so because of transport, all kinds of limitations. But one of the managerial skills of a tour is to ensure that when the guys actually get on stage, they really want to do it. They're hungry for it, man. They want to play. It don't matter whether it's the Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, I don't know, AC/DC, the band, whoever it is. You know, there's nothing worse than a band going on stage that's completely knackered. It's yet another gig and they're exhausted. So, you know, the art of tour management is to deliver the band to the stage feeling good, ready to play and hungry for it.
Yeah, and actually one of the things I've spoken to about the band members about that tour is another attraction was they were playing, for the most part, absolutely stunning concert halls, like the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam and Jahrhunderthalle in Frankfurt. And these were unlike, you know, a lot of the places they were playing in the States, which at that time was college gyms and the occasional rock venue like the Fillmore. But these were, you know, like Phil Lesh was just stunned to walk into the Concertgebouw and see, you know, this amazing architecture.
He played in concert halls where Johann Sebastian Bach played and Mozart played.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It just fucking blew his mind, blew everyone's mind. But we wanted, you know, again, that's part and parcel of the planning and management things that people sometimes overlook, you know, the fact that you want it to be, if you really love your band and you really love what you're doing, you want it to be this amazing experience for people, you know, truly mind-blowing for the musicians. And it takes some going to blow the minds of the Grateful Dead, believe me.
Yeah.
They're not easily mind blown, if you like, you know?
Right. And as far as what we're about to get to, this was the opposite of those opulent concert halls, a very sterile studio. And they were up, you know, people have seen bootlegged versions of this where they're just up against a blue background because they did chroma key and then later in post-production put in psychedelic light show effects and all that. So it's a very alien environment for those guys. And this was like a regularly scheduled TV series, Beat Club. You know, you can find bootleg stuff online of people like Captain Beefheart and a lot of the English rock bands of the day appearing on that show with a German hostess, you know, like effervescently introducing the band. You know, it's really it's a great little time capsule to look at, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, see, in the music business at that time, you know, being on that show, introduce your band, whoever the band was, to the German market. You know, it was looked at all over Germany. That was the big show. And Germany's a huge market, you know, for people, you know. So, I mean, I think that show was central to the appeal of the Grateful Dead to Germany. I mean, Germany, there's thousands of Deadheads in Germany, man, now. And I think largely because of that show. And then that was the thing about the Grateful Dead. People used to go, oh, the Grateful Dead. I don't know about the fucking Grateful Dead or whatever country they were in. But once they'd seen the Grateful Dead and heard the Grateful Dead and experienced the Grateful Dead, 9 out of 10 people went, yeah. If only because of the point of difference. Nobody else was playing like the Grateful Dead. You know what I mean? It's like the Miles Davis thing. It was a jazz band playing rock and roll. Finally, it was something that was musically interesting and inspiring and touched the kind of zeitgeist, to use a German word. You know, it kind of got you deep in your soul somewhere. And it just seemed so appropriate to getting high. It was music that people could get high to. You didn't really get high to the Rolling Stones. You felt you felt like a street fighting man, or you loved the kind of basic kind of I don't know, jungle kind of rhythms or whatever, you know, that deep rock and roll kind of aggravated thing. The Grateful Dead was just something else, you know, man. The Grateful Dead, you know, got hold of you and took you round the cosmos.
So, you know, these European fans, these German fans, they played maybe five German shows on the tour, and they played. They were probably going to the show out of curiosity. Maybe they had a Working Man's Dead, American Beauty. Did you see these people who went in out of the sense of curiosity, maybe knew those albums, and get completely turned on because they were seeing the Dead at the height of their powers? This is widely considered one of, if not the greatest, most consistently great Dead tours ever played. And so I think of these beautiful concert halls, as Gary was describing them, of 2,000 or 3,000 seats, and people who, you know, they didn't live and breathe Grateful Dead the way a lot of Americans might have at the time. And just seeing what they saw must have been unlike anything they've ever seen.
Absolutely. I mean, it blew people away. I mean, people sat in the audience like with their mouths open. I just could not believe the intensity of it. The structured intensity of the Grateful Dead's music that, you know, grabbed you by the cojones, as it were, and dragged you into another space, you know, regardless of what you thought. No, people were completely amazed. They were genuinely amazed. And, I mean, they've never seen anything like it. Well, who's like the Grateful Dead? Nobody's like the Grateful Dead. No one. There's not even anybody. If you look at the 72 tour and the music from that tour, right, and then look at what else was going on in world music at that time, there's not anyone that even comes close to the Grateful Dead. Nobody. Who was playing that kind of psychedelic, extended, interesting jam music? No one. The Grateful Dead, whether we I mean, it's a tall thing to say, but I'm going to say basically the Grateful Dead invented it.
Oh yeah, they started they started a genre, and then they broadened it so they could also encompass all that American roots music, the Bakersfield sound, and R&B and blues. I mean, that was all in their musical makeups, but they learned how to integrate it. And Europe '72 is a real apex of that moment, where they could go from an insane dark star into El Paso, that sort of thing. Happened all the time on that tour.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think we should remember that, of course, that was an amazing period in the history of American music anyway. At certain times, America, and it's a unique country, right, in this respect. At certain times, America, whether it knows it or not, kind of reinvents itself. Like nobody in England goes wandering in search of England. No one in Australia goes, I'm going to go out and find Australia. They're like, don't be fucking ridiculous. In America, people go out in search of America, thanks to, Jack Kerouac and On the Road and The Beach and God knows what else. But in 1968, 69, 70, America, especially American artists, sought to redefine what America was culturally, if you like, right? So you had the Allman Brothers, the band, the Grateful Dead, even Lynyrd Skynyrd, if you like, analyzing, subconsciously, if you like, or emotionally, what it meant to be American. What was American music? And going back, to the roots of American music, and if you like, incorporating those roots, the language of those roots of early folk music, if you like, into their current kind of space. And the Grateful Dead, like you say, Gary, they were unique in that respect. They could go from, the most trippy dark star that was just amazing, and you were wandering around Jupiter, and the next minute just drag your ass right down into the dust of West Texas, out in the West Texas town of El Paso. Hang on a second, I'd just been on Jupiter.
Right.
You had to stay awake there, man, and keep up.
Yeah, it was rather like you were watching 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the projectionist suddenly put in a reel from a John Ford Western or something like that,
Exactly. But that's what people loved.
Yeah, Sam, one of our favorite features of this is that we take some questions from viewers.
Absolutely.
Who Seth Men in advance. And usually there's like one or two for me and David, and then we jump to the guest. David, have you gotten anything interesting that someone has sent you?
I was focusing on the Sam question, so I'll take a quick look. If we want to get Sam answering something, I'd be very happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I'm up for anything.
Okay, I've got a good one for you, Sam, that speaks to the business of the Europe '72 tour. Danny asks, on the Europe '72 tour, were you able to stay in budget, and did the band bring all the sound equipment over from America?
We bought all our own sound equipment. We bought our own recording equipment, of course, and recorded every show. The budget, we managed to stay in budget. Yes, we did, because I too, like Jerry's a bit of a psychedelic fascist on stage. I was always a bit of a psychedelic fascist as a tour manager. Everyone got, I can't remember what it was now. I think it was either $10 or $15 a day, maybe even $20 a day as their kind of tour money, they could spend. And other than that, we were like ruthless. We had to be. And we traveled like in 2 buses, which was one of the reasons why Jerry didn't get enough music. We had to travel. We couldn't fly 52 people internally around Europe because at that time, internal European flights were expensive. So we stayed in budget, more or less, and certainly a lot more in budget than many other previous jaunts that the Grateful Dead did. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that basically it was a given that the band wasn't going to make money on the tour, and that was why they signed the deal to make the 3-record set with Warner Brothers, basically to defray the cost of the tour, and that was a very wise move.
Yeah. That certainly helped, and Warner Brothers were, Warner Brothers. I mean, they, they were the bad boys for a long time in terms of the Grateful Dead, and the Grateful Dead always used to, slag them off. But the fact of the matter is, the Warner Brothers hung on to the Grateful Dead for all the long-term good reasons, and in the end, they developed a very, very productive and far out and very strange and unique relationship with the band, which of course is what the Grateful Dead have always wanted. I mean, working for the Grateful Dead as their tour manager or manager is not the same as working for the Rolling Stones, believe me. It takes a different set of nuances, if you like. And I think that Joe Smith and Warner Brothers in the early days, didn't know what the hell they got, and were very unclear about how to deal with the Grateful Dead. But once they received Working Man's Dead, which was part of that thing I was talking about, where the band investigated, if you like, their Americana roots and incorporated them into their kind of current, mindset. Once Warner Brothers received that album, I think it became much, much clearer for Warner Brothers as to how to proceed and how to deal with these strange people from San Francisco. And in a way, I think the relationship thrived ever since.
Indeed. I just want to let people know we are talking to Sam Cutler, in case you didn't already know that. We are taking donations for the Rex Foundation. You hit that blue button that says donate on your YouTube page, and you can help the Rex Foundation in all of its good works. And also want to let you know we are going to the 45-minute mark here on this broadcast. We started doing that with our Bobby Weir broadcast, and we decided if we have a really great guest, we are not going to confine them to 30 minutes. No way. And we knew what we were in for with Sam Cutler, so we're going to 45 minutes after the hour, at which point we will go to the...
better be an hour, 45 minutes, Gary. I've got lots of things to tell you.
Well, this may not be your only visit, Sam.
Okay, no, I'm always happy to come back. No, carry on, chaps, carry on. Maybe we should speed things up, and I shouldn't talk so much.
No, we love hearing it. So, a question that I saw from a couple of people was relationship. We had Donna Jean on a couple of weeks ago, and she was tremendous. Right. She talked about one of the sweetest guys ever in the Grateful Dead world, Pigpen. And, Pig was on his way out, and you can hear him fading as the tour went on. Yeah. And I guess the question that I saw a couple of questions about the relationship between Keith and Pigpen, with Keith on piano and Pig on the organ and vocals primarily. But did you see the fading happening and feel it the way we hear it on tapes, but you were right there? And what was the relationship like between those two guys?
Well, I mean, Pigpen was very ill. He was very ill on that tour, man. I mean, I tried to nurse him, in the midst of 50 other people to look after. It was difficult, but everyone, tried to help him, man. You know what I mean? The guy was really suffering, and he was very brave, but he was determined not to miss it, So that was sad. I mean, as far as Keith was concerned, I think, personally, I think Keith arrived at the Grateful Dead musically at the perfect time. And he wasn't playing what Pigpen was trying to play. You see, that's what's so unique about the Grateful Dead. They're all playing different shit in a way, and yet they're all like throwing it into the same pot, and this magic kind of mix comes out of it all, you know what I mean, which is quite extraordinary. But so it wasn't that that Keith's stuff clashed with anything that Pigpen was trying to do. The very opposite. I mean, the central thing about Keith was, I think, that was so important, is that Keith's stuff complemented Jerry's playing, especially on that tour. On that tour, Keith was new, Donna was new, everything was new, you know what I mean? And, it wasn't the same old stuff, and it was just so exciting, and the band was at the height of its powers. The everything was right, man. The drummers were fantastic. Everything was great, you know what I mean, musically. And it was a fun time for everyone. There's 50-odd people on tour. People loved it, and the family loved it. The audiences loved it. I mean, they played in England at Wembley, and it was like dead silent. The English were completely, totally blown away. They just couldn't believe it, and it took like about an hour for the audience and the band to finally like click, and that was it. I mean, it was a huge show in this kind of cavernous, horrible place that normally was an ice hockey rink, you know. But yeah, the Grateful Dead won every single audience that they played to, won them over, so much so that people came out of those shows as like, they went in wondering what it was all about. These strange Americans with the skulls, and they came out going, I love this band. I love this band. Where do I get music from this band? You know, and yeah, completely. You know, it was like almost like a religious experience for people. They, you know, and also don't forget. I mean, psychedelics played a role in this. There were plenty of people at the shows in Europe that knew through the psychedelic underground that this was the band to go and see and get high to. So they did.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Let's see. What else do we have for Sam? All right. Ian asks, what do you think were the most important factors contributing to the consistently excellent quality of the band's performances and the sound on the Europe 72 tour?
Well, I mean, the thing I referred to before, being musically hungry to play, not tired, got, you know, full of natural energy when you go on stage. You play differently, man. If you go on stage and you're completely buggered, or you know what I mean, you've just been throwing up all day or whatever, you know, you play very, very differently. And you can only have to look at Jerry's, you know, over the extended period of his creative life to see that there were times, you know, when the poor guy could hardly stand up, let alone play. And then there's other times, and you look at him here in Europe, you know, he's slim, slender, you know, no weight problems, no drug problems, you know, man. He's high, he's in control, and he really knows what he's doing. And everyone in the band is like that. You look at the band, they're all, you know, lean and mean, man, you know, and a tight outfit, proud to be really, really, really together. See, this happens rarely with bands. You know, I was very fortunate. I was with the Rolling Stones at the height of their creative powers, and I was with the Grateful Dead at the height of their creative powers. Of course, I'm going to say, you know, that the years I was with the Grateful Dead was the greatest that they ever played, naturally. But I mean, I think in some respects that's true.
You'll get no argument from me.
I think a lot of people agree with that, Sam.
Yeah. One other point about the consistency in Europe was because of the conditions of the tour, and people like Dennis Wiz Leonard, who recorded the shows for the band, have noted this, because they were traveling with just the most basic equipment they could. There was consistency in the sound. You know, the Dead were notorious for tinkering with things from night to night, from show to show. Change this amp, you know, I'll try another guitar tomorrow. But here they were working with the same gear every night. And so for the people recording it, the people mixing the house, it was, okay, we just have to tweak things a little for the acoustics of this hall. The band will provide the dynamics. And so that made it very easy in a way. They were working from a very basic setup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. You know, I mean, constant experimentation musically is one thing, you know. Constant can't say the word, experimentation technically is another thing. So you're right, you know, there was a consistency. Everybody played in the same equipment. There was no, you know, you couldn't go, you know, no one could say I want another amp or I want this or I want that, basically, because we were busy and we were on tour. And anyway, we were in this, you know, even if you wanted to send it from America, it would take days, if not, you know, over a week to get there, and we had shitloads of spares for all the amps. So, yeah, I think that's a very good point, that it was a setup that we were going to have to live with, and we did live with for the period of that tour. And so everybody concentrated on the one thing that was, you know, central to the whole trip, which was the music. And the music, of course, if you listen to that wonderful set of albums that's right over your left shoulder there, Gary, you know, you listen to it and just extraordinary. Extraordinary. I mean, you know, I've listened to, as we all have, thousands of albums of thousands of different tours, live stuff and everything. I don't think there's anything in the world from any band that comes close to that set of albums. Nothing. I mean, I can't think of anything that comes even close to it, man, in terms of the sheer productive genius of it all. And hats off to Wiz Leonard, to Bob Matthews, to Betty, to all the crew, all these people made it possible. And people like Rosie, Rosie McGee, who actually spoke French fluently, so she played a central role in France in helping us through different different what's the word obstacles. Everybody, it was a wonderful time because everyone cooperated with one another, everyone loved one another, there was no bickering or fighting between the musicians, between the artists, between the hangers out, between the pleasure crew. Everyone was singing to the same hymn sheet. So it was a pretty remarkable time, that's for sure.
Hey, Sam, I guess we're getting ready to wind things down and go transport through time to Bremen right now. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I got an amazing message from Andy Logan, who is the gentleman who now owns Jerry's Graham Nash gifted Stratocaster. And he has a lot to say about that, which we won't have time to get into here. But Andy is going to post a lot of tidbits about the Nash Stratocaster, the Alligator Strat, on the Grateful Dead Facebook page, so people can look that up because it's a fascinating story, and I really want people to get into that.
Man, I gave them the Harley Davidson sticker that's on that guitar.
Great, Andy.
On the 72 tour.
Andy had questions about how those stickers got there, so that's a good one, right? It's a fascinating history, and I'm glad that guitar is in loving hands, being played by many of Jerry's disciples now when Andy loans it out. So it's fantastic.
Isn't that beautiful?
It really is.
It's magic. Absolutely magic.
So we're in our last couple of minutes right now, and
lovely.
We should
farewell. What do I say? Farewell, cruel world.
We'll get you back here, Sam. You're the ideal guest, as I've learned on the radio.
I had all these stories to tell you about different things, but I mean, we should do another one because that tour, can't possibly be talked about in an hour. We need a week on air, gentlemen. Right. A week.
I'm good with that. And it was the Newcastle show in 1970, the Hollywood Festival.
Yeah.
That was 50 years ago tomorrow, or in 2 days. It was 50 years ago. So we can talk about that too, all that footage in Long Strange Trip. So there's a lot of things that you're involved with that people are going to want to know about.
I didn't know I was that old.
Even when the pandemic is over and people are out in the world, we might have to find a little outlet for this talk show to go on because this has been such a gas.
I'm looking at this technology myself because friends of mine want me to do something, because I'm such a wonderful bullshitter. I've got enough stories to, at least last a year. So we just chop it up into sections. But listen, let me just say, love to all my friends in America. I have so many hundreds of friends in America. Please stay safe, and love to all the Deadheads, everybody. It's been lovely to be here. And things like this really make me feel kind of special because it makes me feel like I'm part of a family.
Well, you always have been, and you always will be, Sam. Yeah. So we're about a minute away from going to Bremen.
I still got my ring. Look,
beautiful. Just want to let people know that this is the shortest of our presentations because it was this TV taping rather than a full Grateful Dead concert. So if you want to party afterwards, our friends Peter Shapiro's organization Fans.com is sponsoring a dance party that you can share on Zoom. If you go to Fans.com, you can get to their great DJ brother DJ Jer Brother is doing the stuff. I recommend you check that out. But for now, please keep donating. Hit that blue donate button. To go to the Bremen concert, that's going to be on a different YouTube screen. What you do is you look below you, and where the information is about tonight's broadcast, you will find a different link. You hit that link, and it will take you to Bremen. Before we go, we also want to tell you Sam Cutler is the author of a wonderful,
amazing memoir. Book. If you want to read some amazing stories about Sam's time with the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead, there's a link in the description of what you're seeing tonight. I've read it twice. I love the book. Sam, you're a great storyteller in print, and the spoken word. Next week's show, we're showing an unreleased Grateful Dead concert from Buffalo, New York, July 16th, 1990 at Rich Stadium. You've not seen it, I don't think, anybody. So, I mean, I've seen it a couple times, but it's a great show. It's a phenomenal show from Brent Midland's final tour. But check out Sam's book and please donate. The Rex Foundation really does appreciate it. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Sam, so much.
We love you, Sam. Thank you.
My
Come back
pleasure.
again.
Dude,
Thank
you, Dave.
Go
Love
down,
to everyone.
go down below and hit that link, folks, and go to Bremen.
Wow.